Good morning, Judy. How are you going?
Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. You've kept me up very late here in Perth. It's just past 11 at night. But that's
okay.
good.
You got me up early, so
Yeah,
fair.
yeah. Fantastic. So I just ran the intro there for your vocal website. Tell us a little bit about how it is to be a vocal coach.
Well, my job is to make what people do, speaking and singing, easier and healthier and more effective, meaning since the voices exist to communicate, to make it actually impact the listener. That's the most important thing. So, yeah, vocal health and vocal impact, I guess, is what I do.
Yeah. But obviously, like when you go onto your website, like you can see you have, and again, all the stuff you sent through, you got such a vast range of stuff on your CV. Like you're a producer, you're a songwriter, you're obviously a singer as well. Like, what does a week look like in the life of Judy?
Well, it's a little different right now.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, not too long ago, I'd have to look at my calendar to see if somebody's showing up at my door or coming into my room via Zoom, on the web. Or I might be, the next day I might be in the studio with some production or some vocal production with another team. And the next day I might have scheduled a co-write with somebody. And another day of the week I might be doing background vocals on a project. So it's been a lot of fun. And of course, a lot of that is sort of shut down and kind of focused pretty narrowly into my webcam here.
Yeah. How is, just speaking of that, how's everything sort of going on the whole lockdown and coronavirus in Nashville?
Yeah. Well, it's starting to open up here. I'm not sure that's a wise thing, but at some point things will open up. For the music industry, it's been devastating, of course, because of all the cancellations of touring and all that, not only for the artist, but for the infrastructure around the artist.
Yeah.
So people are trying to figure out ways to get around this coronavirus and make it safe to perform and consume music, especially live music. Keith Urban is the first one that I know of that really went out and did something live. But he did it in a movie theater, an outside theater, and everybody was in the crowd was in cars, and the applause was flashed. The applause was when they would flash their headlights. So there's going to be a lot of different thinking outside the box as far as being able to get back out and perform live for two reasons. One, artists, music makers really need to make music, and that's part of their heart. And two, they need to make some money. So bottom line is we're very slowly trying to figure out how to open it up safely. At least the wise ones are.
Yeah. But in regards to sort of making money, I can see like you obviously run a lot of your business. You run it online. So again, you have you have your blog. You're doing your vocal lessons. You do them remotely as well.
Only remotely, right?
Right. Okay, so you don't do any vocal sessions sort of in person, or is it all online?
All online. Before the pandemic hit, about half of my lessons were online anyway, because I teach globally, online, and also if somebody just doesn't want to deal with rush hour traffic, they could hit me up. But about half the people would come in. But I've just made it a policy. I'm only going to teach for my protection, my family's protection, and my students' protection. The students' protection and their family and friends. Anyway, just online, and everybody understands it, and everybody's absolutely. Nobody's turned it down because it was just online. So it's really effective. Before I used to teach online. In fact, I taught by phone.
Oh wow!
Before the webcam business, and the reason is I can hear the sound of the voice. I can tell whether you're lifting your eyebrows by the sound of your voice. So that's what I'm listening for.
Oh wow!
So it works. Yeah.
How do you do that? Like how do you develop such a good sense of hearing?
All right. Well, for me, I've been in the business of the voice for 50 years plus. I mean,
Wow.
I started when I was quite young. And and not only that, but, it's just something that I'm good at. Being able to, I used to lead a lot of groups and help people make certain sounds that I wanted them to make and all that back when I was doing only session work.
Yep.
And I got good at it. And now I know why certain sounds are made because I've continued to do a lot of research in it. And of course I research on every one of my students. Every one of my students teaches me something new. So, I'm really attuned to the voice so much so that people whose voices are hurting, when they speak or sing, it'll hurt my voice because my voice configures itself to what I'm hearing. So that's a way that I can really get in close, to what my student's doing.
Yeah. Wow. So what is it that is so important? If you were to sort of try and give a couple of hints to people listening, if there's anyone who's sit at home, if they are a singer or if they have some, so if you're a public speaker or something, like if there is something you can do to sort of train your voice, is there a couple of tips or tricks there?
Absolutely. First of all, this is something people don't know. Or don't really, they're not sure of. You're never supposed to experience vocal strain, whether you're speaking or singing, even if it's for a long time. Physical strain or physical fatigue, yes, but if you know how to do it, first of all, you can instantly make your voice feel better by some things that you do. And second of all, if you make it a habit, you never have to experience vocal strain or damage. That's really my belief, and with my students. So here, a couple of tips are, first of all, my method of teaching kind of combines three major areas in a kind of a synergistic three-stranded cord. One is breath, and that means there's three things that have to do with breath, which is the inhale and two parts of the exhale, which are breath support or moving air up, and breath control, holding air back as it moves up. In other words, controlling it, controlling the power. That balance, that combination is incredibly important for having a safe source of power, because for the voice, air is it's like atomic energy. Breath is like atomic energy. Like a little bit can power the grid, a little too much.
Right.
So you want to be able to control that power. And the second thing, big area, has to do with throat configuration. So your throat opens up, down, and back, and if you compromise any of those directions, you can change the tone of your voice. Right? And you can make it sound very different. So there are things that you can do on purpose to try to match another voice. But if you're doing a solo, you really want that instrument open so that the notes can find where they want to go to resonate. In short, so the second whole area is your open throat, or manipulated open throat, and the third area is the most important as far as your vocal success. The third area is performance, and by that I mean communication technique, and that is how successful you are at communication has to do with one thing. Who are you talking to? What response do you want from that heart that you're talking to? Like right now I'm talking to you, and I would want your response to be kind of that, maybe your eyebrows go up at something I say, or your head kind of goes like that, or, if you're listening to me and texting at the same time, you have to stop texting or something.
Yeah.
I'm getting your attention. Yeah. But I'm getting your response. That's the brass ring. So I put all of those together, and there is your best voice and your most effective voice. So to actually answer your question, one of the very first things you can do is move your head back over your tailbone, because your power should come from your butt, not your chest.
Oh, really?
And that way, yeah, it's like riding a horse downhill. And if you squeeze the saddle, a little bit, just a little bit, you'll notice your rib cage opens, and that gives you control over the breath that should be coming up. Just moving your head back over your tailbone, whether you're speaking or singing, straightens out your spine, opens up your rib cage, and actually helps open your throat.
Wow. I remember when I was quite young. I think I was about probably 10 or 12 or something. I had a couple of vocal lessons, and I remember back then. I think everybody was sort of telling me you have to sort of like flex your gut and try and get it out that way. So it's quite interesting to hear you have to sort of sing with your butt.
You know, it's job security for me that people think they're supposed to sing from the diaphragm area.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that gets people in trouble all the time, and the reason is, it sabotages the diaphragm. The diaphragm being a muscle that's connected to the bottom of your rib cage, okay? And if you sing from that area, you're going to inevitably tighten right where the diaphragm's footing is, the bottom of your rib cage. Your rib cage is going to come in slightly. Well, what that does is give your diaphragm a little more slack. So it's less controlled. It can move more. You want the diaphragm to be more like a well-stretched drum head, right? Mm-hmm. Or a trampoline. And when it's stretched wide, you can squeeze your butt till it's blue, but you're still not going to overpower your chords. So for my metal rockers that I teach, and I do teach some, it's the pullback scream instead of the pushed scream. It's like a magic trick, you know.
Right,
and I won't scream into the microphone here, but yeah, you know, just a little bit of that kind of move. And it looks good, and it looks very, come to me, I'm your daddy or your mama, you know, kind of very confident, and It actually works.
That's funny because like my next question was actually going to be if there was any difference between sort of like because you're very much involved in the sort of country scene.
Sure, I'm in Nashville.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the capital of country. So if there was a big difference between singing different genres, and again, you mentioned metal, which is probably the polar opposite to sort of playing country and pop music.
Mm-hmm. No, there's not. It's just the style. It's just the breath and the open throat are the same. And then you use your face and you use your articulators and your body language and your choice of moves for your voice to create the genre.
Right.
And you can pull stronger for louder. Doesn't matter if it's jazz or if it's bluegrass or if it's metal rock. It's the same thing. And the speaking voice as well.
Yeah, fantastic. How did this start? Like, how did you find out you were going to be a vocal coach?
Well, first of all, I have not always been in country. I grew up all over the place. My father was an air traffic controller, so we moved around a lot of places because whenever we'd move, he'd get a raise. So nice. We moved a lot, like service people, you know. So I was exposed to all kinds of different music. And in fact did some classical violin when I was in my high school in Miami and things like that. Now my folks, my parents are from rural Mississippi, so you can bet I got a healthy dose of country as well. But I got into all calypso and when we lived in, down in Miami, and R&B big time in Memphis. And I became a chameleon and a lover of all kinds of styles, including rock. The Stones I liked a lot better than the Beatles because that's just where my heart is. I mean, now the Beatles are incredible, don't get me wrong, but just the groove was,
it's different.
That may surprise you, but yeah. But when I was in high school, I was a Stones girl, yeah. So, but when different doors close in our crazy industry, you can either stop and totally become something else, or you can realize that's the pivot and find another stream that you're good at. And I did that a lot. I went on a lot of, I hit a lot of doors in my 50-year career of brick walls, and had to pivot. And didn't know what I was going to do until it just like I found myself there. I just kept moving. And whether it was from club work to jingle work to session work, meaning background session work, to demo work, doing leads, to songwriting, to finally being a recording artist. And every single one of those doors kind of shut for one reason or another. And so a friend of mine named Carol Chase one day, when after my last songwriting deal had ended, and I was not as my record deal had ended as well, and I'm like thinking, what the heck now? She was on the road as a background singer with Leonard Skinner, and she was having trouble with one note on the road. And she knew me because we used to sing together in the studio a lot. In fact, we were co-writers at Warner Chappell for a while too. So we wrote a lot of songs together, and I called her on a lot of sessions that I contracted and things like that. So she knew me, and she knew something I didn't. She knew I could help her with that note. So I didn't know I could, but I just gave her a suggestion, and it worked.
Wow.
So I thought, all right, maybe I know some stuff. And I put an ad in the paper for, doing jingle, vocal lessons. And I started getting a lot of work. And so I started getting really interested in it, and then did a lot of research in it, and brainstormed with lots of like doctors and chiropractors and different people and Alexander Technique practitioners. And I learned, and I found out that I was good at it. I loved it. And I actually really love being the wind underneath somebody else's wings instead of just my own.
Fantastic. That's a really cool story. How long ago is this?
Maybe 22 years ago.
Yeah,
I guess. I've been teaching about that long.
Yeah, because I was about to say, it was back in the day with Leonard Skinner. That's that's a couple of moons ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. If we're to go back a little bit further, so try and go back to see like when you first got exposed to music. I find it really fascinating to see how people in the music industry sort of got that first hook, into like, did you start singing in the shower when you were 5 years old and you realized, I love singing, I gotta keep going on this? Or what was sort of like your first memory where it all started?
When people ask me when I started singing and stuff like that, the thing is I popped out singing pretty much. Right. I think I probably started singing when I was 2. My father, even though he was an air traffic controller, was also a bluegrass musician and singer and entertainer. He always, that was kind of the way he defeated his stress level as an air traffic controller. So I grew up with our family having jam sessions from the time I was a little kid. And anytime we would travel, we would be singing. And, when the next sibling, I was the oldest, and when the next sibling would pop out, well, they would start singing the melody, and I would get put on a harmony part. So I finally had to learn like 4 harmony parts because there were 4 of us, so melody and 3 harmony parts. And I think that's how I grew my ear, because I grew up singing harmony.
Yeah.
So I really grew up with it, and I didn't intend to do it for a living. I was going to become a research scientist. And then, I don't know, we moved from Miami to Jacksonville, and they didn't have the science, courses available in high school like they had in Miami. And I just started doing what I do all the time, which was singing and playing piano. I started piano lessons when I was 6.
Yeah.
So my first jingle was when I was 17, and our choir director at my little church enlisted me to sing harmony with he and his wife. And the first jingle I ever did was a national spot for Gino's Pizza Logs. So it kind of started there. And I got to tell you something really funny, and it just came to me. It's such a small world, and our business is such an arc, where something in the past all of a sudden comes back, Well, I used to sing backgrounds at High Records, and I don't know if you know about that, but that's the place like Al Green came out of. This is in Memphis. I was doing jingles by day, and at night I would sing on R&B soul records and country
Wow.
records by that were in another studio. So I did a lot of that work at High at Ann Peebles, O.V. Wright, and these are old blues people, and lots of other people through under Willie Mitchell was the producer. Well, Aaron Nesbitt was the keyboard player. All of a sudden, I got hit up on LinkedIn by Aaron Nesbitt this week, asking me if I knew any singers out in LA that were as good as Whitney Houston, I forgot who else. But he's looking for really great background singers, and he knew me from Memphis and those sessions. So I'm putting my ear to the grindstone, because I know a couple of singers in Memphis, but I know some friends in LA. But if anybody out there, if you're in LA and you're a singer, you're a session singer, and you're as good as Whitney Houston what's a typical male singer? I can't think of his name right now. Anyway, let me know, because I'll give your name to Aaron Nesbitt. He's paying very well.
Yeah, cool. So, so did you actually make a lot of money back in the day when you were sort of doing you were doing the jingles, you were doing the background singing and stuff? Was it enough to sort of keep you financially going?
Oh, I lived by myself and totally supported myself. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yep, I sure did. Yep.
Because I was about to say,
the business of music has been my business ever since I was 19 full time. Wow.
Because like when I talk to a lot of upcoming bands as well, and it's almost heartbreaking to see how difficult it is for them to actually make money. They all have to have full-time jobs and sacrifice so much of the money that they make at the full-time job to actually pay to go out and play gigs. I've had quite a few people on who almost pay to go on tours in Europe. Like they come back and they make they barely break even. When
I became an artist, when I was signed to MTM Records as an artist, I took a big pay cut because I was doing jingles and demos and all kinds of things vocally, and had a very lucrative career going in Nashville back in those years. And then you become an artist, and it's freaky. You go into debt trying to but it's like planting an organic garden. It's like any business, really. You have to plant the seeds, but you have to plant them wisely, and you have to eat during the meantime. So you have to figure out how to make it work.
That's a good little metaphor. But so again, so if you're looking at the business back then and the business now, that's obviously two vastly different things, because everything is like so much stuff is online, and everybody has access these days. You can sit at home and record an album. You don't need to go to a studio. How do you think? Because obviously, if you've been in the industry for 4 or 5 decades, how do you look at today's industry compared to back then?
Oh my goodness, that's like asking me what was the favorite age of my child as he was growing up, and I would say, there's beautiful things about every age, and there's horrible things about every age. Well, music business is the same way. Yeah, I've seen so many changes, and they were all so scary. When you are in that business, and it looks like that era is closing, two things happen. You tend to get afraid, and you tend to get bitter. Both of those things are totally counterproductive. There's nothing that stays the same like change. So, like I tell, this is the way I feel about college. The best thing you can learn is how to learn, and how to be on roller skates. And if something's not working, dream with your feet on the ground. Okay, that's the way it is right now. So this is what I'm going to do about it. And instead of getting bitter or afraid or depressed, it's okay to do that for a little bit, because we're human. Check your pulse. But can't stay there. They can't stay there, and you don't need to stay there. Some things have never changed. If you're going to be successful, unless you're bringing there's an old adage in the music business that goes, how do you make $2 million in the music business? You start with 3.
Right.
So, and you can do that. You can do it that way. That's one business model. But really the only way to truly be successful, authentically successful in the business of the arts of any kind, is to get 2 things right. Your art itself has got to be incredibly good. There's too much mediocrity out there. There's too much stuff going on. You don't have to compete with anybody but yourself, but you better be the best and the most unique at being you that's possible. And the second thing you have to get right is, what is the business model, or are the business models that are working? In other words, you got to get business right in every aspect of it. And those are 2 different things. You can't mix them. You can't write a song and be thinking too hard about, well, what's going to be successful over here. When you write that song or you sing that song, you need to be right in the middle of, what am I feeling like I need to express? Who am I talking to? And all that. The art needs to be successful, in and of itself, and be feeling good about creating that. But then the business, okay, you got to really look at that reality and see, okay, who would like this? Where are they? How can I be visible to them? And that is constantly changing light years, almost every other year now. So we have to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I think I think you're spot on when you're saying in regards to finding your target audience, finding out who is this for. And that's again also why like the internet today, it really allows you to send everything out there. You just got to find out sort of where to direct it to. And I think a lot of bands these days maybe struggle a little bit doing that and actually utilizing the internet. Because look, I'm sitting here in Perth and I'm talking to you in the States at the moment, and you just have that connectivity. It's right there. And yeah, so it's I think that's a really good tip for most people, again, to know your audience, find out who you're targeting, and obviously
where they are.
Yeah, and as you said, and obviously go as hard as and good as you possibly can, to try and be the best you can there.
Yeah. And then it behooves people that are trying to make a commercial success out of their art to actually go and study internet marketing courses. And that's what I've done. My internet marketing mentor is named Denise Wakeman. And she's all about, all kinds of ways to reach people organically, where you don't have to pay a lot of money for ads. That's another thing about the internet. It costs a heck of a lot less to promote ourselves if we do it wisely,
Yeah. So you're active on quite a few different platforms. Like you got Twitter, you got LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and all that. So that Denise, when we were talking about, is she actively doing your online presence, or are you doing that yourself?
I'm doing that myself. She's teaching me how. So I'm self-sufficient. I'm on a need-to-know basis, and if I need to know, I'll find out. And so I search out the people that I feel like are the experts in the field that I want to find something out about, and then I'll go connect with them. And the first thing I'll do is check out their free stuff, and that's what people do with me as well. Yeah. And then if I like that and it's helpful, then I might dip my toe into buying a course or two. And if I like that, then etc. Go deeper. But I like to think logically, and creatives are not incredibly really good all the time at thinking logically, because we have all these feelers out, and we're in all kinds of directions and stuff like that, and that makes us really good at writing and singing and communicating and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes not so good at being business people.
Yeah.
So we need help. And it just takes a village.
It does, yeah. Or it takes external help, as you're saying. Like, again, you need someone who can run that part of the business. You need like a marketing director in the band.
Right. Or a tech director even, I've thought about this. I've thought about this. What if you had a great band and one of the members of the band was not a musician, but a total tech guy and social media guy and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And he was so good that you really couldn't afford him. He would have to have wanted to be in. He loves the music of the band so much that he was willing to gamble on splitting the proceeds amongst the band, like you would. And like maybe he would come out and announce the band, and he would be like this famous person in the band that everybody knows and loves, but he's totally a tech guy. Nobody's ever done that.
Interesting.
It would be a fun thing. It would be really unique. I double dog dare somebody in your audience.
Yeah, cool. Well, I suppose that it would almost be like sort of like having a manager that was in the band, kind of, but like a social media guru.
Right.
Or marketing, or like marketing expert.
He'd make cameo. He'd make cameo appearances, between songs or something like that.
Yeah. Look,
hand somebody a microphone.
That's a good idea. But I suppose again, you just gotta know that person. I have someone who's gonna volunteer, saying, I'm happy to chip in and be a part of it. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Vested interest in their success. That guy has the vested interest in the band's success too. Yeah.
Yep. Let's try and go back a little bit, because obviously I'm sitting here, like, you sent me through so many interesting topics to go through. I don't even know where to start, but like you met your husband through music as well.
I did.
Yeah.
I did in 19 when I moved to Memphis in 1971 and started working doing jingles, and John was the drummer in one of the jingle companies that I worked in. And we all, the band that, he had a little band, the people that were doing the jingles there, we did like 70% of the world's jingles. And at that time, every product had a jingle. So that was a lot.
Oh, wow.
And so they were like staff musicians. They were musicians that were doing all those jingles, but they got bored doing jingles because it's only like 3 minutes, okay? And so they wanted, no, what am I saying? They're only like 30 seconds to 60 seconds. They wanted to do 3.5 minutes to 5 minutes of jazz instead. So they formed this little band that was a jazz band, and then they decided they wanted a couple of chick singers. So they enlisted Wendy Suits and I, who were staff jingle singers there. The point being, this band was top of the line musicians, and Wendy and I had tons of experience as singers too. So we did cover songs there. And here's what I learned in that band. Well, in the first place, my husband was the drummer, and he was playing the drums behind me, and we got to kind of liking each other. So we married about 3 years later, I think it was, 75. But I learned in that band, I didn't realize how much I would learn, but in covering all kinds of covers of different genres, I had to really dissect what the singers were doing to sing what they were doing and covering that. Of course, I did that in the jingle world too. But the other and I also learned to write charts. The band leader, Buddy Skipper, wrote most of the charts, but I started wanting to write a little bit of them too. So I had to dig in and dissect that song and those, try to hear all the parts that were going on and write them out. And so I learned a ton, and I think I was in the band about 7 years, something like that. We went the gamut from Carole King, I think So Far Away was my first song, to Chaka Khan and and Rufus, and R&B and all that stuff. Jefferson Airplane, things like that. So I really learned a ton in that cover band. And then we moved to, my husband and I had our son in Memphis, and then moved to Nashville in 1980. We moved to Nashville in 1980. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've been there ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's such a cool story. Did you guys ever get around to playing the originals, or was it predominantly covers?
That's such a funny question. Of course, I became a songwriter and then had my own artistic career on MTM Records as an artist, and my husband was in the band with me. But we only started writing together in 2014.
You're kidding.
So we came out with our first album of originals, and released that in 2015.
Yeah.
So, like I say, the long arc. Who knew? We didn't even know that we would write together ever, and so we ended up writing a project because it just felt right.
Why did it take so long? That's
well,
a long time.
My husband was a classical percussionist. He was in the symphony in Memphis, and then he became a session drummer for jingles on all kinds of different things. And then we moved to Nashville, and quite frankly, he was very bored with country. He couldn't. Right. He really didn't like it. So, other than playing for me, after my career was over as an artist, he quit for a couple of decades. And then like I say, just a few years ago, we were watching Carole King and James Taylor do The Bottom Line in New York. There's a PBS special or something. I don't know what it was, but we remembered the magic that could be created. And I looked at him and I said, man, if we could do that level of magic in music, wouldn't you want to do that again? And I figured he'd just roll his eyes up, But he said, yeah. So we did. He had to relearn to, master the drums again, which took a little bit of time, not all that long. But at first, when he first picked up his drumsticks, he said it was like his golf club felt more natural in his hands. But then it started coming back, and we created this project, and actually, I think I'm more proud of this project than anything I've ever done.
Oh wow! So, have you gone anywhere with that music? Like, have you toured that album, or?
The thing that we did, we played a few shows, and our showcase got 3 standing ovations in Nashville at 3rd and Lindsley, and we really were thinking about going on the road with it. But 2 things happened. One, our bass player, who really helped, a bass player and a drummer have a special affinity, and they really matter to each other. And the bass player, Mike Chapman, who was one of the G-men, or the people that are in Garth Brooks' band and have been for decades. Anyway, he's somebody I used to call for sessions a lot when I would produce. A great friend. He got cancer, and he started getting sick. And my husband the heart went out of it, And then my husband tore his rotator cuff, and so he really can't play at that level because of he not being able to raise his arm enough at that. So what we did was we created this project, and then we felt good about it. It was like we didn't do it on purpose for commercial reasons, and besides that, I'd already been through that movie where you turn into an artist and then you lose a whole bunch of money. My prime day job these days is vocal coaching, and vocal coaching and producing in Nashville. So it would have been really hard for us besides that, we'd already been, to using vans and past vans into the tour buses and all that. And at our age, it would be hard for my husband and I to get back in the van and go down the road. So we decided that we were absolutely on purpose not going to promote it. We just made the music, and we played a few shows and felt really good about the response. And now we have it. And it still sells here and there. And then, lo and behold, this last year, or earlier this year, the first song on the album, on that little project, made its way to a Canadian sci-fi series called The Expanse. So you just never know where the music's going to go.
That's fantastic. Did you get any response from Canada on that song then?
No, not yet. It was a really small snippet coming through the guy's headphones, but whatever, cha-ching. So it's a story I can tell, and I know it was in the scene because my husband and I were watching the series, and all of a sudden it came on in the guy's headphones, and I screamed from the couch. So
that's
it was
awesome.
fun. I mean,
awesome.
and who knows where it might go next? And it's still out there, as is the rest of the album.
So is this recent that this happened with that sci-fi show? Oh wow, okay.
Yep. It was in I've forgotten. I think it was at the end of last year that we saw it, or beginning of this year. But it's very recent. I forget what. I know it was episode 5 but I forget which year. It was, but it was very recent. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and our son actually wrote that song with us too. So we split it 3 ways, and that was really good. That was good.
That must be really nice to be able to do that as a family as well. So you have, but yeah, that's actually a really good question as well. Like, how is your kids? Have you got more than one? Have you got more than?
No, I just have the one, and he has done. He is a creator, and he has got that creative mind for sure. Which means his trajectory has been like that. So he was in the Navy. He's been photojournalist, and so photography was his art there. In the Navy, he learned welding, and he's become an art welder now. And so he's welded on stages like for the CMAs and like for Garth Brooks' drummer and all kinds of things like that. And now that the stages are no longer needing to be built for this year because nobody's doing those big tours, he's starting to do more art welding for different kinds of things like furniture and different things. But his mind is always creating something new, and he's having to learn to become a business person too. But on the side, like my father, he has always played music to deal with stress. And he's very bluesy with his playing. So he came up with his groove one day, and he was kind of just playing it. And I said, Peter, let me play with you. So I started playing some changes. John heard that, and he said, okay, well, let me play this with it. And so he started playing with it. And then he just said, okay, so let's call the song something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, what the heck does that mean? What is that about? But I sat with it, and it wasn't too long, and the song came out. And that was how organically that song came into being. And then, John and I wrote the rest of the album, except for one song I wrote with a girl in New York. So it was just, like I say, it was a pretty cherished project for me.
That's fantastic. So does he play guitar, your son?
Yes.
Yep.
And a little drums, yeah, but mostly guitar.
Yeah, cool. It's a really good song. We'll get to hear it at the end of the show. That's I love that. So did he grow up with instruments as well, or was it something that?
Oh yeah, I mean, my Lord, he grew up. He went with us out to on tour a lot of times because if, of course, John and I are on the bus. So Peter had to be on the bus too. And I think he was 7 years old, and he was out in L.A. In a hotel room while John and I were doing the Tonight Show. So he was around it all the time and around the band and all that. So he's very much into gear. In fact, when we first moved to Nashville, I took him with me as a baby, 2-year-old, to one of the studios that was just kind of going around different studios, just looking at it and saying hello to people, some people that had moved before me that I knew. So while I was talking to somebody at the studio, Peter flipped the switch. It was the main switch, and turned all the speakers off, almost like blew the equipment. But he's into taking whatever it is apart and then putting it back together. He's got that kind of mind.
Great, man. So, wow, it didn't get in trouble then.
Oh, yes, I think I turned all kinds of shades of red, but they couldn't do anything to a 2-year-old.
Oh,
so
of course,
I left the studio and but I ended up working a lot there. So
cool. And you were mentioning the Tonight Show. I think that might be a good opportunity for us to play a little clip.
Oh yeah.
I might just quickly play the beginning of it, and then I'll get you to tell us a little bit about that, because that's a pretty cool story as well.
My next guest, Judy Rodman, was voted named the most promising female vocalist this year by the Academy of Country Music. She's going to be appearing at the Palomino Club in North Hollywood tomorrow night, and in Fort Collins, Colorado on August the 12th. This is her current album, Judy. Would you welcome Judy Rodman? Judy.
There's a room in my father's house full of old heirlooms, Grandma's Bible and Grandpa's trunk, to a total stranger, no more than junk. The closest ties I ever knew.
Fantastic voice. It's and how? So this was back in, was it 86? It's mid 80s.
Yeah, 86, 87 probably. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
How was that?
With Johnny.
Yeah, the
Johnny
Tonight
Carson.
Show.
It was awesome. Yeah, I was very nervous. I'm normally not nervous because I just grew up doing this, But there's two places I've been nervous that I can remember. Only two places I can remember. One was the first time I did the Tonight Show, and the other one was the first time I did the Grand Ole Opry. And the reason is standing behind the curtain there, knowing everyone that's come before. There's just this sort of sense that all the spirits are right there, like watching you for this initiation, and then the curtain opens, and then it was all I could do to just fake being calm, but my knees were really shaking. And at the Opry, they've got this little circle of wood from the original stage that the soloist stands on. And when I stood on that circle of wood, I swear I could almost feel the spirits of people. It's just, I have such a reverence for masters that come before, because I know what everybody goes through. And so just, it was really cool.
Well, it's also a huge audience. I mean, it's a Tonight Show.
There's that. Yeah.
Just a slight little thing to add to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that must be like, I'm assuming, even watching back on it now, you must be really proud of that moment. It's a great memory.
Yeah, I was able to do the Tonight Show twice, and the second time, the lady Alice Randall, who co-wrote the song that I did the second time, "Girls Ride Horses Too," with Mark Sanders. Anyway, she didn't know that I had cut the song, I don't think. And the first time she heard it she was in, I forget where she's from, not from or she was vacationing in the Caribbean somewhere or something. I forget where, but she was watching the Tonight Show and it came on. So that was cool.
Wow.
That was really neat for her. Yeah. But it was really wonderful. And the show was wonderful. Carson said something that made me feel really good. I didn't get to go be on the couch and do an interview with him, but after the first time I sang, he said something to the effect of, wow, she doesn't even sound like she's straining.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It sounds like it's easy. And I'm thinking, okay, little did I know that I would use that as a vocal coach later. Like, my forte is singing without strain, no matter what kind of genre you're singing in, is to do it without strain. So that was, I could use that as an endorsement.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good clip. And again, it's actually on now where he's talking about your album. And I think he's got, who is it? He's got some, is it James Belushi or something? He's got on as a,
it is.
Yeah. That must be back in the days from the Blues Brothers.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Around that time.
It was backstage, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So what happened to your career back then? Because you had an album out. He presents an album you had out at that time.
The first two albums did very well. And we were a boutique sort of label on MTM Records, which was the Mary Tyler Moore enterprise that was based out in LA. They do the TV shows and all that. So it was Mary Tyler Moore Enterprises. So they backed this boutique album back in the day when there were no indies that were doing anything. This was back in the day of the major label. That's it. And they own everything. And I was able to break through, and the MTM Records was able to break through with more acts than me. And then the German company BMG bought MTM Records out in LA and decided that they don't want a record label. So poof, I was on top of the world, and then I was nobody.
Wow.
And there's something worse than never having made it, and that's having made it and lose it like that, like overnight. Wow. All of a sudden you're chopped liver, But it's something that I learned so much going through, to lose that deal. My trajectory, everybody's trajectory, when it's authentic, the journey is always different. And I would never do what I'm doing now. I would never have done that and learned what I know if I had kept on going as an artist. So, and then the thing is, they ended, and I was a little bit older. I was in my 30s, later 30s, I think, by then. And people like Faith Hill there was this wave of new, young artists that just washed right over. At that point, the industry started opening up for new instead of just the same old winners of the CMA every year, and so I was considered too old at the time to invest in again, so nobody signed me from there. And I was still doing I felt like I was still doing great work and writing better than ever, but also I was getting a little bit outside the bounds a little bit. I was getting a little more pop, a little more R&B-ish in my stuff, and I think that wasn't sitting well with some of the urban, or rural rather, stations. So I was kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right. It just wasn't to be. But now I see it kind of as a blessing that it ended and I had to go on to something else.
Why is that?
Because I think I would be bored stiff doing my same songs over and over and over again every night at the country music reunion people. First place, I've never totally just been country anyway. That was a way I had to focus myself at that time, because that's where the commercial market was and that's the city I was in.
Yeah.
So, it just didn't feel as authentic as letting me branch out. And that wasn't going to let me do that at the time. Now it would. hence Maren Morris and When the Bones Are Good, I could never have done that and gotten away with it back then.
Yeah. So how quickly after that did you start doing your vocal coaching, or what was sort of your instant move from that? Because I could imagine exactly like you said, like you had made it, and all of a sudden it's gone. Like
right.
it would hurt.
I cried for 3 weeks straight, and I don't even remember 3 weeks of it. I don't remember where I was. I just looked up one day, and it was 3 weeks later. What I did was, I had a family and I had a small child still, and I had to go on. So I, through networking and stuff, I signed a record deal with Dave Loggins. And then that lasted about a year or so. He was my songwriting mentor. He wrote Please Come to Boston. He sang it, and he was a Hall of Fame writer. He's an incredible writer and could also be a really harsh mentor. So I learned a lot, whether I wanted to or not. But he was amazing. And then after that, I signed with Warner Chappell. And then I got a #1 record that became a BMI Millionaire Award, that I got a BMI Millionaire Award for, that I never wanted anybody to cut but me. I really wrote it for myself, with my co-writer Keith Henton, to go on and pick up again as an artist in a kind of Fleetwood Mac-ish kind of band that would, be open-ended and all that. And we were talking to Arista, but Warner Chappell cut it out from under me, the plugger. I let him hear it because we had demoed it, but I told him we were, kind of holding on to it. Well, he pitched it to Chuck Howard, and Chuck Howard pitched it on a no-name artist that he was working with on Curb Records, who turned out to be Leanne Rimes. Poof, so the song was huge.
Oh, wow.
And I sent the plugger flowers later. I wouldn't speak to him for about 3 months, but then I sent him flowers to thank him. So it's like, you got to let your babies go, and go where they're going to bloom. So I had a #1 record as a songwriter, and then was back on the moon with that. And then a few years later, that I wasn't writing songs that the market was using for whatever reason. And that ended. And that's where the idea for vocal coaching came into play. And it was very organic, because I really never wanted to be a vocal coach. I had taken music education courses, but my major in college back then was piano. It wasn't even, my minor was voice. So I just, this was not something I foresaw for myself. But the opportunity opened up, and I just went through that window to see what was there. And wow, it's been my most fulfilling journey so far. It's been my most fulfilling, I guess, era of my whole life so far, other than that project that my husband and I did.
You've also, I suppose, again, as a mentor, as a teacher, again, like you would also have met quite a few interesting singers along the ride. One of the ones that was on your list that I picked up on was Dan from the Black Keys.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Of all things.
How did
I thought I had done it. I thought I had done it all. Talk about out of box thinker. Dan Auerbach has a studio in Music Row that's it's full of all these vintage instruments, and this is just incredible. But he was doing something not as part of the Black Keys, a solo thing that was totally out of the box, just incredibly creative, like really creative. And for a couple of his songs, he wanted a couple of singers. I forgot where he found my name, but me and my friend Jennifer O'Brien, who sings backgrounds for Dolly and all kinds of things like that, session buddy of mine, he hired us to sing like these weird Disney-esque kind of vocals, ahs, and singing with the chorus, I think, and something like that, behind this really weird song that he'd written, like trippy song, okay? And it's the first time in my whole career that I ever sang a high D in unison with Jennifer. Okay, so you just never know. Never say never, and never think that it's the last thing you're going to do.
And so, but he contacted you, or he wanted you specifically?
Yeah, I think it was that he asked one of either his producer or somebody that was producing with him, or the keyboard player. I forget who it was, but he asked them who would be a couple of really good background singers for this thing that I'm wanting. And they told him, so, he had them hire us. So we came out and he was there and he produced it. He produced the vocals. Yeah.
Wow. That's I would say if you're talking about not having made it and having made it again, like that's a very big pat on the shoulder, to get him. He's a high profile. They've done very well.
I know. Yeah. And he's so creative. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, he's done so many side projects as well. Next to the Black Keys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, really great vibe. Sort of more on the bluesy rock. Mm.
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. I think we can do anything.
Have you got any other sort of people that are sort of that people might know? So like Dan obviously is a big profile. You mentioned Leanne Rimes. Has there been anyone else that comes to mind?
Through the years, back in the day when I was doing sessions, I was doing backing vocals for most of the big artists that were coming out of Nashville. But now as a vocal coach, you have to, when you reinvent yourself, people have to get used to the idea that you're not in the same category that they're used to seeing you. So it took a while for the industry to kind of realize. I started working with up and coming singers and all that, and still do that. But now, little by little, the major artists are starting to, realize that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm getting referrals from people so that they realize I can do I can do what's needed. But anyway, Casey Musgraves was recommended to me by my old label mate. Now I'm going to forget. Radney Foster. And Foster and Lloyd were a duet that came out of MTM as well. And Radney has gone on to do this Americana thing that he's gotten quite famous for and done PBS specials and all that. Well, he started working with Casey as an up-and-coming songwriter back in Texas. And so she was having a little bit of trouble with strain because she was working a lot. And she was, falling into a little bit of a bad habit. It doesn't take much for a great singer, just like a great golfer, like Tiger Woods. If you get a little bit off your swing, you're gonna be in trouble. And Casey was, having just a little bit of trouble with strain. So Radney sent her to me. And so I worked with her for a while before she signed her deal. And so I was really, in fact, she's one of the testimonials I have on my website. I was really happy to be able to make a difference in her career. And then she came back when she did the Crossroads show with Katy Perry, and she had to learn harmony to Katy Perry. And Katy Perry is, got quite a range. So we worked on technique and her being able to sing some parts and all that. And then the next time I heard from her, she had me come and work with her band before the Golden Hour tour. So I was able to help them because her backgrounds, she really likes really good and lush backgrounds on the right places in her stuff. And she wanted the band to be able to sing background, not just sing it, but sing it well. So I went to their rehearsal space and kind of worked with them to help them get up to speed on good technique to do that live tour.
Yeah, so that must be so rewarding to be a part of that and to be invited to sort of have that responsibility.
Yeah, and then to see that album do what it did, it's just incredible. I was so happy, for her and for the band, and to be that's what I'm saying. Like, to be part of other people's journeys is so rewarding for me. And even just to have, I had this kid Ryan Stewart is his name. This little African-American kid who right now, I think I think he's still a teenager, like 17 maybe. And he's working in a warehouse, I think, moving boxes around. Well, he decided, he's also doing this YouTube series, okay, in empowering young people. And he decided that his voice was too weak and people weren't really able to hear him very well. And he was had a really meek sound. So he contacted me and asked me if I would help him get a stronger voice. And within one lesson, he's screaming with joy at how much better and bigger and more his voice is, and more responsive people are to it. So they're listening to it. And then he sent me a couple of YouTube clips to show me the difference. And I'll tell you what, I get as much joy out of that as I did watching Casey when the awards for Golden Hour, because it's just like making a difference in one person's journey, a significant difference. I think that, I can't imagine a more rewarding journey for me.
Yeah, no, it's a powerful experience. But
Yeah.
So what was it that you did to him? Because like if it was just this little thing, you must have ticked the switch or something.
Yeah, and see, what I do is when I have the person perform, whether it's speaking or singing, like they would naturally, so
Yep.
I can see what's going on, and immediately I can see what's going on, And with him, he was speaking without any facial language. And when you do that, you tighten up the throat channel to your resonators. So, like, for anybody out there that wants to try this, you want to try an experiment?
Let's do it.
All right. So, make your eyes be very numb, like poker faced. Like, don't move them.
Okay.
Don't move your eyebrows. Don't move your eyes. And count to 3 loud. And I'll do it, but you do it with me.
Okay.
1, 2,
3.
Good.
1,
now wake your
2,
eyes up.
3.
Right. Now raise your eyebrows and widen your eyes and do the same thing. 1, 2,
1,
3.
2, 3.
And you'll notice a difference in your voice and how it sounds and how it feels. And the next thing is the jaw. Poker face jaw or frozen jaw. 1, 2, 3, and then move your jaw like Forrest Gump saying life is like a box of chocolates. 1, 2, 3. And you'll notice the difference in your voice. So poker face voice sounds like a robot. And unless you're in EDM and you want to sound like that, or in a movie where you want to sound like you're guarded and you're not going to let anybody know what you're feeling, you want to use your face. So I introduced him to his face.
Wow.
And he was like freaking out.
That's funny. Yeah, it's a good story. Good story.
And it's facial communication. It's facial language. So you don't sing buggy-eyed or talk buggy-eyed all the time, but you use facial language, and then the voice gets access to movement.
So what is he doing now? Is he still singing? Is going
This was
harder?
This was just this month that this happened, and I had a second lesson with him. I think it was Monday. It was Monday or Friday. But anyway, he's doing this YouTube channel. He's working this little gig, and he's living at home. And then he is working this little, warehouse job. And he is doing a YouTube channel. So if you look for Ryan, R-Y-A-N Stewart, it may be YouTube under Ryan Stewart, or Mr. Ryan Stewart, as he calls himself. But he's all about trying to help kids his own age be themselves to the nth degree. I think he's going to change the world.
Wow, that's huge. That's a big thing for a 17-year-old kid.
I know. He's got this huge heart, but he was in thinking mode instead of doing mode. I do this podcast of my own called All Things Vocal, and the last episode that I had, if people want to check that out, the last episode I had is called rehearsal versus performance voice. And that part of that is, if you're in thinking mode, you're not in singer-songwriter mode. You're not using your face like you should be if you're in performance mode, where you're really trying to get somebody to understand something. So that's something people can check out too.
Excellent. I actually, at the moment, I actually have your different, like YouTube, your Twitter, and all this. I actually have that scrolling down the bottom at the moment.
Oh, cool. Cool.
So if people want to book some vocal lessons, how does that work? It's obviously you do it through your website or something, but so you connect through Zoom or Skype or something like that?
I use Zoom. I find that it's, in general, the clearest, and it's free to use for everybody like Skype. And I can also record either from the Zoom software, or if Zoom gets sketchy, I've figured out how to do it through audio through the phone, video on the screen. So we mute our audio on the screen. So it works really well. And at that point, I might record with my podcast mic, but I can record exercises for everybody. So it's really effective. And they just contact me by going to my website and hitting the contact tab, because my life, I'm still doing some writing that over the web, in different things. I just kind of keep my own calendar. So best for people to just contact me through that tab.
Yeah. Fantastic.
At judyrodman.com. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Let me just say to you, if anyone out there is watching, if anyone has a couple of questions for Judy, just start typing them now. We'll do a little Q&A in about 5 to 10 minutes. In regards to some of the other stuff that you have on your CV as well, you also have public speaker.
Yes.
What is that about? What are you?
Well, I do presentations on the voice. Like the last presentation I had for an artist development company called PCG, was the title of the thing was, I think it was 21 Ways to Murder Your Voice.
Right.
So I could tell them how not to.
Yeah. And
I've given seminars that are like all day, like all day seminars. And then I can give, 20-minute speeches or 15-minute speeches. But yeah, I love to do that. I love to speak for groups of people that are interested in the voice, and even businesses that need their employees to be able to speak better and get a better response from what they're saying. So yeah.
What sort of businesses would that be? Would that be like if you're selling, or would that be if you're on the phone from a call center, or is there any specific
all
businesses?
Of the above.
Yep.
All of the above. And educational places that need to do webinars. Like I've worked with someone who mentors doctors in changing careers, but
wow.
She had muscle tension dysphonia and had problems with really bad glitching in her voice. And so I helped her figure out how to defeat those glitches and control her voice better. So when she talked to clients, it's much more effective if they're hearing a voice that's not glitching out. Mm-hmm. And also, she's become a podcaster herself, or going to do a podcast herself. So any kind of business. I work with voiceover artists who need to be able to control their voice to the nth degree, for that complete control over the tone they want, the inflection they want, and all that. So in fact, if you can think of ministers, I work with reporters, TV reporters, and media people and all that. So
wow, very, very extensive.
Whether it's one-on-one or one-on-one or in groups.
Wow. I actually might have a question for you then. Like me personally, sometimes when I get either if I'm a bit nervous or if I'm really excited, I start to stutter a little bit because I just have to say it.
Yeah.
I just say, how is that? How does that work?
Okay, the biggest cure for that is to always think of speaking as an interactive sport. It's not a one-way thing. And what people miss is the response. So if you wait, you will slow down if what you're doing is waiting for the response back. Like when I say something, it's weird here because, I'm looking at the webcam there, but you're down there.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to get your response to anything that I say, even if it's the slightest little response, so I know you understood what I meant. And if you didn't, I might say it a different way. But that way you give yourself permission to breathe, and you give your audience or your listener permission to digest what you just said.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that will slow you down. Yeah.
Yeah, because you
and
absolutely.
the other thing is, one other point is always imagine that whoever it is you're talking to is partially or selectively deaf.
Wrong.
And they need to see the words in your face.
Yeah. Now, you're absolutely right. If I do speak a little bit slower, yeah, it's fine. But that's why I'm saying, like, either if you're nervous or if you're really excited and you want to talk really fast, then usually sometimes stumble over the words a little bit.
Right.
But now it's a really good tip.
Around, yeah, moving your mouth around like you're talking to the deaf, it slows you down a little bit too. And nervousness for singing or speaking, oh my gosh, does it make a difference? Instead of thinking I'm saying this to you, you should be thinking, what do you need from me to understand something? And then you're not nervous because you're really making it about the person that you're talking to instead of yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's again, as you said before, it's a little bit different when we're sitting here, we're looking into a camera and sort of trying to get a visual response. Yeah. But again, look, I've been doing this for 5 or 6 weeks now, and it's almost like it's becoming a little bit of a habit now. You used to just sit and looking at this screen here, and I actually have a couple of other screens up here because I've got that for the reference for the actual live stream as well. So I've got faces everywhere.
Yeah.
But now it's a good tip. Just slow down. Take it easy. Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic. Let's see here. We've got Salem. Salem
Good.
Jones checking in here. Salem, yeah. The rules for aging in the business.
The Empress of Rock. I call her the Eeyore. The Empress of Rock.
Yeah. Now she's got a very, very strong voice as well. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah.
We actually had a short little we wanted to do a little trial run to make sure we could actually connect over Messenger, because apparently she had a little bit of Yeah. So she said she had a little bit of difficulties connecting through Messenger on her computer. So it was probably good just to do a little trial run. So we did that, and instead of just a little trial run, we started to chat away. It turns out her husband is Danish. I'm Danish as well. So we were like,
oh wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So there we go.
Wow.
So we decided we better terminate it straight away, because we need to keep it for the actual chat that we have next week. But yeah, right. I'm really looking forward to that. But she's saying here as well, the rules for aging in the business are only for women. Still, let's hear it for Crone Country, like Crone Rock.
Crone Rock, I love it.
Yeah, that's it. Oh my goodness. That's it. But now I'm really looking forward to having a chat to her, and it looks like she's got some really interesting stories as well of their career.
Oh, she does. Oh my goodness, we could talk for hours. We have we call it now. We used to call it Skype tea, but now we call it Zoom tea. That we have every once in a while, just to kind of catch up with each other. Yeah.
Well, you guys are also lucky. You're sort of kind of on the same time zone. I'm sitting here; it's completely polar opposite. Like it's 20 past midnight here.
I've worked with people in Australia in a couple of different places, in fact, and it's always interesting trying to find a time that works. It's usually early in the morning for me and late at night, or sometimes late at night for me and early in the next day for them.
Yeah, because I think we're 13 hours ahead here. Because it would be about 20 past 11 at yours or something in Nashville at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So there you go. Look, probably just a couple of questions here to round off. What's sort of next on your agenda? Is it just keep going where you're at, or have you got any ambitions to sort of elevate your business from here?
Well, this COVID-19 thing has really thrown everybody for a loop, but for me, I'm kind of on the same trajectory. The next thing I'm thinking about is doing a big video project. I've got a lot of audio courses. I've got audio courses and all that, but I've never done a completely video project, so I'm about to I've already written it. It took me a year to write it. So I think I'm going to do a big video project that has 12 different modules so that people that can't afford to take hourly or half-hour lessons in person can buy the videos and take and do that. And I'd also, as we get out of this era and we can start doing a lot more live stuff, I would really like to do a lot more speaking things. So I'd like to, I'd like to do more speaking. So
the video course sounds like a really good idea, because that's again something, by the time you have the content, you can sort of run it on autopilot. Like it's something people can buy, and you have that as a series.
Right. And they do that. I've got a CD course that I've had out since 2004, and that took me about a year and a half to create. And I've been selling that. I still sell that. But the problem is people don't have CD players anymore. So I've created a thumb drive version and sell it digitally as well.
Yeah.
And then I've got an ebook now. So there's different ways, that I have gotten courses out there. I've got a paperback on Amazon called Singing in the Studio. But the video course I've never really committed to, and so I think you can do so much more self-sufficiently now, and so I've got the means to create that course myself in this room. I'll change it up a little bit and put the backdrop in the back and all that, and I'm going to create this video course, but it's going to take a while.
And you also have your podcast, and you have your blog as well.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. The All Things Vocal blog and podcast. I try to keep that going and try to make a couple of episodes a month on that. But sometimes I get behind.
Yeah. Well, I think most artists have that problem from time to time. You got to find time to do it.
It's really hard for us to totally commit to a time frame.
Yeah, and again, you have all your social platforms you gotta keep updating as well and focus on.
Yeah.
So
I'm also thinking about creating a songwriter round too. So I'm going to keep singing too.
Yeah, excellent. But in regards to if people want to sort of be up to date on what you're up to, where would they go? Like, what's your preferred platform if you were to sort of direct people to find out a bit more about Judy Rodman?
Well, where I would suggest they do is go to judyrodman.com and sign up for my newsletter, because that'll really kind of concisely. I put that out about 4 times a year. But as far as keeping in touch with me more regularly, probably Facebook is the place, which would be Judy Rodman Voice would be the place that I'm the most active. Yeah. And
your Instagram, you have an Instagram, LinkedIn, you have a Twitter as well. Are any of those active, or is it predominantly
Instagram?
Facebook?
Well, I tell you what, I use Buffer to kind of hit them all a little bit.
That's very popular.
Buffer.
Yeah.
But I do. I'm kind of behind on Instagram, but I've been more active on Instagram than any other place except the Facebook page. So go Instagram, Judy Rodman. I'm definitely there.
And your podcast, is that available on all the podcast streaming platforms?
Yes, all podcast the apps that you can think of by now. It's All Things Vocal. The All Things Vocal blog has about it's getting close to 2 million, but at least 1.75 million, I think,
Wow.
views. The podcast has over, I think it's around 90,000 listens. It plays at this point. It's getting about 1,000 per month. 1,000 per episode average listens.
Wow.
So it's really getting out there. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. That's some really good
It's fun.
stats. Yeah. I can see why that little 17-year-old kid would find you. It sounds like you got a huge appearance in your industry.
I think the podcast and the blog are where people find me the most, quite frankly.
The podcasts are becoming bigger and bigger as well. That's also my next thing again on my to-do list. Stuff that I have to find time for as well is to condense all the streams I've done so far and get them out on the actual podcast platform. Because it's such a convenient medium. People can listen to it, when they're driving back into work or if they're at the gym. Not that anyone is at the gym at the moment because everything is locked down, but it's such an easy thing to have, and you can pause it and you can go back and listen and resume your conversation and all that.
Right. And it lives there. It just lives there forever.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. That's it. Fantastic, Judy. It's been super interesting to hear all your stories.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. Have you got anything? Any final words? Any tips or tricks you wanna finish off on to any aspiring singers or musicians or artists out there?
No, other than just keep rocking. The three things I think during this era that are really important is first, stay alive. So don't get complacent.
Yep.
Don't get complacent. The second is train your ass off. Really train. And however you do that, free or, by listening to things like this or taking courses or whatever, and create your body of work. And then third, stay useful to your fan base. However you want to, figure that out.
Yeah.
And then you'll not only keep your fan base, but you'll draw more like-minded spirits.
Yep.
So that's what I would say. Those three things is to stay alive, create and train, and then be useful.
Really, really good advice. Number two is resonates very strongly with me because that's how all this started.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was literally like I was so sick and tired of just constantly turning on the TV and all you saw was just death and destruction and people dying and ICUs and all that. So I was like, I got to do something that's positive.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things you miss the most in this whole pandemic misery is love and connection. Like you want to talk to people about something else, something you're passionate about, and music was just one of the things. Everybody loves music in one way or shape or the other. That has led me to you and a lot of other really interesting people that I've been talking to over the last couple of weeks and will continue to do so in the weeks ahead. So for me, this has been, it's been almost like a blessing in disguise, as the silver lining kind of all this destruction.
It's been so interesting, and your questions and the discussion has been so fun and interesting. I'm going to have to check out the other things that you've been doing and the other people you've been talking to. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well. I'll be watching you.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. I'd love to give you a couple of pointers to some of the guests that might be interesting to you, because I've had a couple of singers. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And they have a couple of them had some really powerful stories as well. So excellent. Mm-hmm. Judy, as I said, it's been super interesting to have a chat to you, and we're going to finish off on one of the songs that we've been talking about. Do you just want to give us a little bit of last final words on that song?
On something like that?
Yep.
It's an old wisdom song, and it's like, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. So check it out.
Excellent. I'll put that on now. Thanks a lot, Judy. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in or listening along to the show. If you like the show, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to my social channels. It doesn't cost you anything, but it greatly helps me to build my networks and my chances of getting sponsors to keep this show running. If you want to take it to the next level, please head over to patreon.com/Stephen Helhammer and become a patron by joining the exclusive community there. You can start from as little as $3 per month. And for just a little extra, you get access to some fantastic features, outtakes, behind the scenes stuff, and much, much more. That's less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month. And that way you can help me build better content. I can devote more time to find awesome guests and just generally just keep everything flowing. If you want to be on the show or subscribe to my mailing list, send an email to steven@helhammer.com, and that is HELhammer.com. That way I can start sending you exclusive invites, random stuff, and messages that, who knows, you might enjoy. So that's it. Have a rocking day ahead, guys, and I will see you on the live stream or in your headphones very soon. Take it easy.